Hi, I'm Bill Lindeman. I'm here with Mike Siver, and this is going to be the first of a series of shows that Mike is going to do. Mike is a reality therapist, and he's got a very interesting career and practice, and he's written a few books, one of which is What Role Did I Play? And Mike's subject for tonight is when belief becomes practice. Is that right?
It's when behavior becomes belief.
Well, I had that wrong. When behavior becomes belief. And he'll make it all clear. Okay, Mike.
All right, Bill. Well, when young people, when their children are born and they're raised in the home, when a baby needs to get changed, it'll start making noise when it becomes uncomfortable, or when it's in pain, or when it's whatever the uncomfortableness is. And it's up to the parents to figure out what that noise means.
Okay.
Does it mean I'm hungry? Does it mean I need to be changed? Is something pinching me? And moms are really good at that. And then dads pick that up a little later. But that behavior they have, if I make this noise, I'm uncomfortable, they'll change me.
Right.
If I make this other sound, then they'll feed me. And that becomes a belief, unconscious at first because they're infants. But as they grow up, and then they're sitting in the high chair, and they decide, I don't want this, I want that, well, they'll do something to get that. They'll either throw this on the floor. There aren't many young families or young parents that will say, okay, that was what you had to eat, and you chose not to eat it. You're not going to get anything. Parents don't do that. They want their child to have food and nourishment and to grow up healthy. So for a while, they'll play the game. He doesn't like that, so we'll give him this. He likes this. But this is not very nutritious, and this is. So when do they make the switch, and what do they use to make the switch? Until they do, the child is learning that his behaviors get him what he wants. And we all did. I did it too. I'm sure I did it. My mom said, eat them, you might like them. Well, I didn't like them. And I didn't have to eat them. So that was a behavior. If I made enough noise, I didn't have to do what I didn't want to do. We keep learning that way as we're growing up. That's just a way we learn. Even when we start speaking, we learn that screaming can get us some attention. It can also get us what we want. If sister's bothering brother, or brother's bothering sister, well, screaming gets mom's attention, brother gets a spanking. So the behaviors are in play and teaching us our beliefs on what works for us. And that's fine up to a point, because that's how we get attention, when we're not able to communicate. If that is not addressed at some point in the growth period of the child, that behavior becomes a belief they can carry into teenage years and even to adulthood. And that's when it can become dangerous, and your social acceptance is at question then, when you start to behave unlike everybody else to get what you want. The same thing with students doing homework. I can't figure that out. And if I don't do it long enough, somebody will do it for me, or I won't have to do it. And if I get a bad grade, what are my consequences at home? They're not that much sometimes. Well, some parents, they're extreme, which is okay, because then the child has to choose between different consequences. Which one do I want, which one don't I want? But it's a behavior. And our behaviors dictate on how we address other people, how we speak in public, how we yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, or may I instead of gimme. Those are all behaviors we learn, and then we start to question why, as we grow a little bit older, those behaviors are not accepted by our peers or even the older adults. You can't go into a cafeteria and start standing up and reaching across the table and grabbing stuff that you want off the table.
Right.
Because everybody else is going to think you're an idiot. And your behaviors, you believe they're okay because that's how you were taught. Unless at some point you start to recognize that your behaviors and your belief now have consequences that you didn't want, you didn't anticipate, and they're starting to become more than the value of your behavior. You just can't go into a store at 15 or 16 or 17 years old, grab a toy off the shelf or grab something you want off the shelf and stick it in your pocket. And if you get caught, mom's going to spank your hand and make you put it back and apologize to the owner. That doesn't happen when you get that old.
Right. Yeah.
But if you believe it will work, you do it, and then the consequences are if you get caught, go to the police station, the police come, you might even get handcuffed depending how old you are. You're going to have you could have a small record as a juvenile. And sometimes kids can't deal with the consequences because all of a sudden the behaviors that they exhibited a lot of times during their life are now not accepted, and they haven't been told how to deal with them.
Right. Yeah.
Now, to most people, you figure out, you know, if I walk underneath that door and I get hit in the head, I need to duck down a little bit. You start to learn a new behavior.
Yes.
And it gets to borrowing things from people, turning up on time for jobs, for work. All these behaviors, if you believe that there aren't serious consequences for them, life becomes a real struggle. And people wonder why, well, I can't turn up 5 minutes late, it's okay, it's only 5 minutes. But to a corporation, 5 minutes to 500 employees is a lot of money.
Sure.
That's a huge amount of money. To you, 5 minutes is 5 minutes, and why are they getting upset?
Well, that could be your job right there.
It could be. In a lot of cases, it is.
Yeah.
And if you do it 2 or 3 times, now sometimes you have to have 2 warnings or 3 warnings and a write-up and all these kind of things to get fired, which still goes to reinforce your behavior. I don't get a kick out of it. I try to talk to parents sometimes who use the 3, well, we'll warn you 3 times. It's time to go. It's 9 o'clock. Time to go to bed. All right, 9:15. It's 9:15. Time to go to bed. This is the 3rd time I'm telling you, and then the kids know they don't have to do anything until the 3rd time.
Sure. Yeah.
Their behavior and their parents have taught them that 3 is the lucky number.
Yeah.
And until I hear that 3rd warning, and depending on what the parents are doing, that 3rd warning could come an hour later or 2 hours later. The kid doesn't care. His boundaries are that I need 3 warnings before I do anything that I don't want to do. That doesn't work when you get outside of the home.
Yeah.
You may get 3 warnings, but they're serious, and some corporations allow that and some don't. But again, those are our behaviors that become our beliefs. Now, until you get to the point where your belief is getting you in more trouble than you want, and all of a sudden the consequences are more serious or more valuable than the behavior you were doing, you start to look at that, and most people do. All right, if I do that, I know I used to get away with it, but I'm getting in trouble today. So I need to stop. I need to stop or change or modify my behavior or do something different to stop getting in trouble. Now that becomes a belief. If I keep doing that, I believe I'm going to get caught. If I keep doing that, I believe I'm going to get in trouble. So now your belief is changing your behavior.
Okay, yes.
And as you grow with that thought process, now all of a sudden your belief becomes your behavior. Instead of your behavior dictating your belief, now your belief is dictating your behavior. And that's a whole process that I work with my clients on learning to adjust their behaviors through a different belief. Now, it's sad that most of my clients come to me through the legal system.
Sure.
So their beliefs that they could do what they did, whatever they did, got them in my office. And we talk a lot about this particular thing. It's very basic, but when we break it down to where if you didn't believe you could get away with it, you wouldn't have done it.
Sure.
And that's just basic common sense. And you believed you could get away with it, and you didn't. Now, what about the next time? Well, I can't afford to do this anymore. I can't afford to pay these fines. I can't afford to pay your office fees. And I can't afford the time to sit here and listen to you talk. And I can handle that because they don't want to be there. But their behavior and their belief got them there. So now we talk about changing your beliefs and your belief system. I do a lot of stuff with domestic violence.
Right.
And that's a belief that some men have. And I don't want to go into a whole big philosophy on domestic violence, but when a man believes that he can control the home by emotional or physical abuse, those consequences are very serious. It's the one thing, one of the many things, but one of the major things, the community, the society as a whole, does not like men who beat women or children. And that belief has got to be changed. And we talk a lot about that, and there's a video out that I'm trying to promote more about a professor who's now on the circuit saying that as long as women are the only ones who are promoting against domestic violence in the home, it will never change. Men have to be the one to stand up and say, my belief is that that's a bad behavior for you. Now, not in those words. But when you see a man or hear a man wanting to become verbal against children or against a woman, and you know in your heart it's wrong. Well, his belief is it's not, or he wouldn't be doing it. So it's up to us as men to stand up and say, that's not good enough. You can't do that. Stop doing that. Until men start to do that, the behavior won't change. And the belief that the behavior is acceptable won't change. Now, if we can do that, then that's going to make a big difference in the domestic. It's going to take a long time because it's
well, in some societies, that's pretty strongly embedded.
Oh, and a lot of them.
Really, in a lot of societies,
And you hear about on the news. The stuff in India.
And I was just thinking of that.
And there's a little bit of a chapter here, part of the chapter. One of my books that I like to read, if I can find it here. This is just an example of behavior in beliefs. If we borrow money and say we will pay them back on payday, then that is what is expected of us. You did not say, I will pay you back unless something comes up. You are expected to pay it back on payday. Come payday, you do not pay them back. Later, while talking to him, with a new pack of cigarettes in your hand, you say the reason for the lack of repayment is your wife had an unexpected day off, so you are taking your family away for the weekend, as your family hasn't been away together for a long time. To you, that makes sense. You have no way of knowing if or what the person you borrowed the money from had to do or give up to loan you that money in the first place. But you want to take this opportunity to be with your family, which you believe is important, so you expect them to understand and wait for the money. You can almost see it happening. You believe others should understand your behavior and how important it is. You made a selfish choice of not paying them back, but at what cost? By behaving selfishly, you may have had some fun, but again, at what cost? You are enjoying yourself today, but somebody else has paid for it. Your belief that the happiness and the time you are having now is more important than your ethics and integrity. There is no question that quality time with family and the ones you love is very important, But again, at what cost? It may cost you your integrity with your fellow workers. You made a deal with your family. If you made a deal with your family, they would have understood if you took the time to explain how important personal integrity is in life, what a teachable moment that could be, how important it is for others to see you as a person of your word and who can be trusted.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't believe that that's important, then you're going to borrow money, and that'll be the last time you get money from that person.
Right.
Because, as it said in there, you don't know what it took for that person to give you that money.
Yes.
Now, they may have anticipated you paying that back so they could pay a bill. Now you put them in a bind because they can't pay a bill because your belief was my behavior was more important than paying you back.
Yeah.
And that happens so much today. And people don't value their ethics, don't value their integrity. What will somebody else think of me? Because my time with my family is more important than what you think of me.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases it is, only if you can afford it.
Yeah.
So that's part of what I teach.
Well, we might mention you read from a book that you wrote called What Role Did I Play?
Yeah, and I've got another one that's just being published now that's called Why Do I Behave the Way I Do? And
Yes.
that's getting some good reviews. So I'm looking forward to having that on the market really soon. And I'm also discussing having that book converted to a children's book.
Oh, that would be terrific.
Why Do I Behave the Way I Do? Illustrated for children to look at why do they behave the way they do.
Sure, and those are the people that really need to learn it when they're children. You know, they need to learn it when they're children.
Well,
So
if they're not, I'm sorry.
Well, it could avoid a lot of problems in the future.
It sure could. And if it's not
lives.
taught by the parents,
Yeah.
how are they going to learn?
Yeah.
Because I know I looked up to my mom for guidance, whether I liked it or not sometimes. She was the only one I had. You know, we as children go to our parents or unconsciously believe our parents are the ones that give us the skills we need psychologically to live in an adult world.
Well, I know for years and years I've heard this constantly. You know, that parents spoil their kids. They had a rough time of it growing up, and they're going to make it easy for their kids, and they give them everything they want, and they're ruined. Again, you showed us exactly that you believe it. You know, your behavior becomes belief, right?
It does.
And they actually believe that they deserve all this, you know. They deserve anything they want.
Well, they become entitled with no boundaries.
Okay. Entitled with no boundaries. That's good, yeah.
The young, some spoiled kids become entitled with no boundaries. And there is an example, too, that is just that about rich people. And that's the next example in the book, is when you become spoiled and you don't have boundaries, what do you do when all of a sudden there's no money and no nothing and you have boundaries put on you?
Sure, yeah.
And that's why, you know, they say sometimes the military is a good place for people to go. Today, you have to have a high school education before you can even be considered to the military. I guess I was fortunate. I was able to go in after leaving school and didn't get it till I was in school in the military, but you can't do that anymore.
I do hear that a lot. The military has saved people's lives, you know.
It has.
Themselves together.
I know some people I've worked with since, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, so they've grown up now, and a lot of them are in the military, and they'll come back and say, this is it. This is what saved my life.
Sure. You mean that discipline, yeah. The boundaries. Know what their boundaries are.
It also allows you to think ahead. A lot of kids today don't think past today, or they don't think past the next afternoon, where structure and being taught leadership, you learn to plan ahead and think way ahead. And that saves a lot of people, too, from getting in emotional situations or situations that they don't want the consequences for.
Sure, yeah.
Instant gratification is what we have a lot today.
Yeah.
Today,
It's true, yeah.
and that spoils a lot of people. I want it, and I want it today. We're a society of today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want to find out what's going on in China, you can find out in 10 minutes. Open the internet up, have a look. Well, years and years ago, it took a letter in a newspaper 2 months to find out.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Gone are the days of Pony Express. Now it's Instant Express. And that creates instant gratification for people. They want it now. You know, my wife was telling me the other day about some dentures a friend of hers were getting. She got them in 24 hours. I mean, it used to take weeks.
Sure.
Instant gratification gets us in a lot of trouble, especially when we're young with kids. I want it today. I want it now. I want this toy. I want this ice cream. I want this candy bar. I want this new bike. My old bike, I don't like the color anymore. I want a new bike. Well, instead of buying paint and have them paint it, they buy them a new bike and give the other one away.
Well, you mentioned, you know, what you said about parents giving them 3 chances. I don't think a lot of parents realize what they're doing. They're actually teaching that belief. It becomes their belief that they, like you said, I don't have to do anything until the 3rd warning.
And that happens a lot even as they grow up, as they grow older. They expect 3rd warnings.
Sure, yeah.
And the teachers sometimes do it too. I've told you once. Or they'll take them to the principal. I told him 3 times to do that. Well, that's reinforced the 3rd time challenge. You know, and you can't live on 3 warnings when you get in a responsible position in life.
Sure. Not in the military, that's for sure.
Well, not even in the military. If you have any aspirations of responsibility, and when you start to supervise other people, are you going to take 3 warnings before them to do their job correctly?
Right.
You probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
But if you believe that's okay, it's going to slow down production a lot.
Sure.
So 3 warnings is something I work really hard to get parents to avoid doing, to stop that as soon as possible. And we talked on a couple sessions before about telling kids to try things too. You know, how try can set you up to be a failure in life, and we can talk about that on another show. But yeah, parents don't really realize what they set the kids up for until it becomes too late. And then they realize that they've done something. A lot of parents actually realize, I've created this problem, but they don't know how to fix it. And unless they have a place to go to get support for that, and that's partly what I'm hoping these shows will do, and the books will do, is having a place where they can go and watch and say, yeah, well, I do that. I give my kid 3 times every time. Am I creating something here? Am I starting something that I don't want to stop? Or that I might not be able to stop? Am I letting him have his way because he makes a sound or gets mad and stomps up and down the stairs? I mean, I did that one time. Got mad at something my mom was doing, and I stomped up the stairs to the bedroom, and she called me back down. She said, now stomp up and down the stairs for 1 hour. I never stomped up the stairs again.
Yeah, well, I've known you, Mike, for several months now, and I'm really excited about your techniques and the way, you know, your knowledge of human behavior and how to correct. And I think this is going to be an exciting series, and I think your books are some books that really need to be read by people if they want to improve their lives. Well, you know, you do role-playing exhibitions, and they're really interesting.
Well, I'm hoping we can do some of those on here as well.
That'd be great. That would be wonderful, yeah.
We can get some groups together and do some activities that I do that are surprisingly challenging, as you've witnessed some of them. I'd like to do that and show what behaviors produce when they're not being supervised.
Right.
And it comes out in all of us, adults as well.
Sure.
And we had a good example with that trolley game with Carrie.
Sure.
If you remember that one.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, and you're part of Carrie's show right now, but we're gonna produce your own show and you know, your own series.
starting in a week, I
Yeah,
believe.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that.
yeah.
We've got some interesting topics, and I'll also have some guest speakers on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be an interesting time.
And your company is called Blue Seahorse?
Blue Seahorse Incorporated. It's a nonprofit organization.
Mm-hmm.
So we've managed to keep our costs down
Uh-huh.
and provide the quality service that we feel needs to be done at a cost that today people can afford.
Yeah.
And that's working out really well for us and for the clients as well.
Well, you have quite a long experience, pretty wide experience in this kind of work.
Well, I ran several youth programs. I used to be the youth and teen coordinator for the city of Orlando, Florida.
That's right, yeah. That's right. You work with a lot of kids in a very responsible position. So you've seen some challenges, serious challenges with young people, you know.
Yeah, and I did that for 4 years, and that was that was a challenge by itself.
That was a handful, I'm sure.
All the inner city kids for 4 years in the wilderness.
Sure.
Interesting time, and we can talk about that one time.
Yeah.
I've got some photos and some slides and stuff that would be interesting maybe to look at what kids do on their trips. And I ran 2 juvenile programs, one in Georgia and one in North Carolina, as the program director for several years. This is what I do. I like working with kids. Middle teens are usually the hardest group to work with, and I somehow fit in that niche. I like that group. But I love working with parents. We do parenting groups in my office, so that works out really well too.
Yeah, this sounds like a real exciting field. You know, people can learn new behaviors, right?
They can, and it's just teaching them in the right setting, in the right time, at the right place, and being able to convey that to a parent to have them wake up. And if I have time, I can give you a small example of one thing we used to do with mothers. We had a group of mothers and their children sitting in a circle with 2 mothers in the middle. And every person had 2 or 3 signs that they could hang over the mothers in the middle's head. And on that sign, you were to write what the mother's role was in that home, whether it be cook, bottle washer, cleaner, taxi driver. And after about 10 minutes of everybody putting their signs on these 2 mothers, you couldn't see the mothers. They were covered with signs. And nobody realized how much responsibility and work was depended on. And it was expected by the kids.
Yeah, expected, right.
And all of a sudden, people are crying all over the place because these mothers couldn't be seen for all the jobs they had to do. And those are the kind of things I like to do because that's impression. They don't forget those scenes.
Their mothers are being taken for granted.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of them are. And it's funny how women just accept that. That's powerful.
Sure, it sure is. That's why I like working with you, and I am really excited about what we're going to be doing with the show. So it's time to wrap it up, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you regularly. This is Bill Lindeman and Mike Siver for the Blue Seahorse, and we'll be seeing you regularly, like I say, and we'll have some interesting demonstrations and guests.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
And thank you.
You're welcome.